Your billionaire soulmate is younger than you. Here's their city, age, and the secret you were never supposed to know. Don't scroll away yet, because in this fictional soulmate story, the shocking part is not simply that your soulmate is younger than you, and it is not even the money. The real shock is that they have been hiding something much more personal than their wealth, something connected to why they have been searching for someone exactly like you while everyone around them kept assuming they would choose someone completely different. Stay here for a moment, because the city, the age, and the secret all connect in a way you would never expect. Your billionaire soulmate is not living some loud, attention-seeking life where everyone knows what they are thinking. In fact, the more successful they became, the more private they learned to be. They are surrounded by people who admire what they built, what they own, what their name can open, what kind of room changes when they walk inside. But very few people know the person underneath all of that. And that is where you enter this fictional story. Because they do not feel drawn toward you because you would be impressed by their lifestyle. The opposite. What fascinates them is the possibility that you might be one of the few people who would look past all of it. In this story, their city is New York City. Not because their entire life is glamorous, but because New York became the place where they learned how quickly success can make people surround you while still leaving you emotionally alone. They built their life there. Maybe finance. Maybe technology. Maybe real estate. Maybe a company that grew much faster than anyone predicted. Their calendar is full. Their phone rarely stops. People constantly want something. Meetings. Invitations. Opportunities. Introductions. And from the outside, their life looks almost impossible to improve. But late at night, when the meetings stop and the apartment becomes quiet, the question that bothers them is surprisingly ordinary: who actually knows me? That question became stronger as their success grew. Because wealth created access, but not always intimacy. People laughed harder at their jokes. Agreed faster with their opinions. Remembered their birthday. Invited them everywhere. But your soulmate slowly became suspicious of attention. They started wondering whether people liked them or liked proximity to what they had built. And that is why their age matters. In this fictional story, your billionaire soulmate is 29. Younger than you. And that difference is not something they are embarrassed by. But it is something they have thought about. Because most people around them assume that when they eventually choose someone seriously, they will choose someone who fits a predictable image. Younger. Trendy. Socially connected. Someone who looks effortless beside the lifestyle. But that is not what their heart has been asking for. Their heart has been asking for emotional maturity. Someone who does not become hypnotized by appearances. Someone who has already lived enough to know that attraction without peace eventually becomes exhausting. Someone who is not impressed by every shiny thing because they have learned what actually matters. And that is why someone older has quietly become part of their imagination. Not because of the number itself. Because of what they associate with it. Perspective. Calm. The ability to see through performance. They want someone who can look at them after a brutal day and not ask, "How much did you make?" They want someone who asks, "Are you okay?" And when they say, "I'm fine," they secretly want that person to notice when the answer is not true. That is the first secret. But it is not the secret you were never supposed to know. Stay with me. The deeper secret began several years before this fictional connection ever existed. Your soulmate once had a relationship that looked perfect from the outside. Beautiful couple. Expensive places. Trips. Photographs. People constantly telling them how lucky they were. And behind closed doors, they slowly realized they felt completely unknown. Their partner knew their preferences, their schedule, their favorite restaurants, their financial world. But not their fear. Not the insecurity underneath the ambition. Not the reason they worked so obsessively. Not the part of them that believed if they ever slowed down, they would discover they were not as valuable without achievement. That relationship ended. And the breakup changed them. Not because they stopped believing in love. Because they stopped believing being desired was the same as being known. That difference became everything. Afterward, they became much more guarded. They dated. They met people. They attended events where nearly everyone looked impressive. But something kept missing. Whenever someone became fascinated too quickly by the lifestyle, your soulmate emotionally stepped back. Whenever someone wanted to know the private jet before knowing the private fear, they lost interest. Whenever someone spoke more about our future than about who they actually were, your soulmate became suspicious. And slowly they formed a private rule. They would never tell someone the full scale of their wealth immediately again. Yes. That is part of the secret. In this story, they sometimes introduce themselves simply by their first name. No company. No valuation. No family name. No number. Because they want to see what happens before money enters the room. Do you listen? Do you ask questions? Do you laugh naturally? Do you respect the waiter? Do you become interested in them before knowing what they own? That became their hidden test. And almost nobody knows they do this. But the secret goes deeper. There is one person in their family who knows exactly what they are looking for. Their mother. And months ago, during a late conversation, she asked them a question. What kind of person would make you stop questioning whether love is real? Your soulmate laughed. They tried to avoid answering. But she knew them too well. Eventually, they said. Someone who doesn't need me. Their mother looked at them carefully. Need you financially? No. They paused. Need me to prove their worth. That was different. Your soulmate continued. I want someone who already has a life. Someone with opinions. History. Lessons. Someone who could walk away if the relationship became disrespectful. Someone whose love would be a choice, not dependence. Their mother smiled slightly and said, You sound like you're describing someone older than you. Your soulmate froze. Because they had been thinking the same thing. Not necessarily decades older. Simply someone who had lived enough to stop romanticizing emotional games. And your soulmate admitted something they had never said aloud before. I think I am. That conversation became a secret between them. And from that point forward, their mother stopped suggesting the people everyone else expected. She understood. Her child was not searching for someone who matched the image. They were searching for someone who could survive the image and still see the human being beneath it. If you're enjoying this fictional billionaire soulmate story, subscribe and stay close, because the biggest secret has not been revealed yet. Their city is New York. Their age is 29. Their wealth is real inside this fictional world. But the hidden truth that almost nobody knows is connected to something they have already prepared for the person they eventually choose. Your soulmate owns a private property outside the city. Nothing like their main residence. It is quieter. Smaller. Surrounded by enough space that the noise disappears. No major parties. No business meetings. Almost nobody goes there. And when someone once asked why they kept it, your soulmate said it was an investment. That was another lie. The truth? They bought it after the breakup. Not for business. For a future. A future they were almost embarrassed to admit they wanted. They imagined building a life where success did not control every hour. Morning coffee without meetings. Someone reading on the other side of the room. Dinner made badly together. Phones left somewhere else. A place where nobody cared what their net worth was. They have never brought a romantic partner there. Not once. Because somewhere inside, they decided that place would only be shared with someone who made them feel like they could take off the identity everyone else expects them to wear. That is why your age difference matters more emotionally than socially. They are tired of being seen as the person who always knows. The leader. The decision maker. The one with answers. Secretly, they want someone who is not afraid to tell them, "You're wrong." Someone who can challenge them without trying to dominate them. Someone who does not confuse their success with emotional wisdom. Because they know something most people around them do not. They may know how to build companies. But love? That still scares them. Intimacy scares them. Being chosen when they are not impressive scares them. And maybe that is the deepest reason they imagine someone like you. Not someone who needs the billionaire. Someone who can love the 29-year-old person underneath him. The person who sometimes lies awake wondering if everybody would still be there if the success disappeared. The person who secretly envies couples laughing in ordinary restaurants because nobody is watching them. The person who has spent years building security and still does not know whether they feel emotionally safe. And this is where the secret becomes even more unexpected. Your soulmate has written something. A letter. Not addressed to a specific name. Not yet. They wrote it one night after realizing that money had solved many problems but had not solved loneliness. The first line says, "If you are reading this, it means I trusted you before I told you everything about me." They keep that letter at the private property. Nobody knows exactly what it says. Not their friends. Not their business partners. Maybe only their mother knows it exists. The letter explains why they hide their wealth at first. Why they are suspicious of attraction. Why commitment terrifies them. Why they bought the house. And most importantly, what they are willing to change when they finally meet someone who feels real. They promise in that letter not to use money as control. Not to solve emotional problems with gifts. Not to make someone feel smaller because their bank accounts are different. Not to expect loyalty simply because they can provide luxury. They want partnership. Not admiration. And there is one final line in that letter that says, "I hope you met me before you met everything I own." That is the secret you were never supposed to know. At least not yet. Because whoever eventually receives that letter will already have passed the only test your fictional billionaire soulmate truly cares about. They will have seen the human being first. But there is another piece. Something even their mother does not fully know. Recently, your soulmate met someone. Someone who did not respond to them the way people normally do. Someone older. Calmer. Someone who asked a question that stayed in their mind for days. Your soulmate had casually mentioned how busy they were, perhaps expecting sympathy or admiration. Instead, this person asked, "Do you actually like the life you built, or are you just good at living it?" Your soulmate froze. Nobody asked them questions like that. They went home thinking about it. Days later, still thinking. And for the first time, they wondered whether the person they had been imagining for years might not simply be an idea anymore. Maybe they had already crossed paths with them. Maybe the reason their mother recently noticed them smiling at their phone had nothing to do with business. Maybe the private property they never shared with anyone suddenly appeared in their imagination with another person standing inside it. And maybe that person is exactly why your soulmate has started questioning the one rule they swore they would never break. Never reveal who they really are until they are completely certain the other person is safe. Because this time, they want to tell someone. Everything. The age. The city. The wealth. The fear. The letter. The house. And the future they have been secretly preparing for years. But before they do, there is one thing they need to discover. Does this person care about them because of who they are when nobody is watching? Or will everything change the moment the word billionaire finally enters the conversation? And in the next part, one unexpected meeting is going to answer that question in a way your soulmate never saw coming. The person you are about to hear about has spent years protecting one secret above everything else, not their money, not their investments, not even the private property outside New York that almost nobody knows about. What they have protected most carefully is the ordinary person underneath all of it. And now, for the first time, someone has entered their life who makes them want to break their own rules. Someone older. Someone who does not seem impressed by appearances. Someone who looked at this 29-year-old billionaire and asked a question nobody else had ever dared to ask. Do you actually like the life you built, or are you just good at living it? That question followed your soulmate home. It stayed with them during meetings. It returned while they stared out across New York late at night. And it made them realize something they were not prepared to admit: they did not want another person who admired their life. They wanted someone who could see through it. But there was a problem. This person still did not know the truth about who they were. They did not know the full scale of the wealth. They did not know about the private house. They did not know about the letter waiting there. And they definitely did not know that your soulmate had already begun imagining them reading it. For several days after that first meaningful conversation, your soulmate tried to behave normally. It did not work. They found themselves remembering tiny details. The way you listened. The way you did not interrupt just to prove you had something interesting to say. The way you did not seem nervous around them. Most people became slightly different around your soulmate. Even people who did not know the exact number attached to their wealth could sense status, confidence, influence. The kind of presence that comes from being accustomed to making decisions. But you did something unusual. You treated them like a person. Not disrespectfully. Not dismissively. Just normally. And your soulmate was almost addicted to how ordinary that felt. During another conversation, they deliberately avoided discussing work. They wanted to see what happened when there was nothing impressive to talk about. You asked, "What do you do when you're not working?" They laughed. That's a dangerous question. Why? Because I don't have a good answer. You smiled. Then maybe you work too much. Most people would have responded differently. They might have asked what company. What industry? How successful? You did not. Instead, you asked, "What did you enjoy before your life became work?" Your soulmate went quiet. Before. Nobody asked about before. They thought back to being younger. Before valuations. Before investors. Before assistants organized their days. Before expensive rooms became normal. They remembered music. Cooking badly. Driving without a destination. Reading. Maybe drawing. Maybe basketball. Maybe sitting somewhere for hours without feeling guilty that the time was not productive. They told you one of those things. You said, "You should do it again." Your soulmate laughed. "I don't have time." You looked directly at them. You have time. You just spend it somewhere else. That irritated them slightly. Because it was true. And strangely, they liked that you said it. You did not know you were speaking to someone capable of purchasing almost any convenience imaginable. Yet you had already discovered the one resource they treated as though they had none of. Time. That night, your soulmate called their mother. She answered. What happened? They frowned. Why do you assume something happened? Because you're calling me instead of texting. Fair. They hesitated. Then. I met someone. Silence. Their mother did not immediately celebrate. She knew her child too well. Finally. And? They're different. Their mother laughed softly. Everyone says that at the beginning. I know. So what's different? Your soulmate thought. They don't seem interested in figuring out what I can do for them. Their mother became quieter. Do they know? No. Anything? Not really. There it was. The experiment. Your soulmate had met you without giving the entire context. You knew they worked. You knew they were successful enough to be comfortable. But billionaire? No. Private properties? No. The true scale? Not even close. Their mother asked. Are you planning to tell them? Your soulmate looked out at the city. I want to. That surprised even them. Their mother heard it. You want to? Yes. Why? Your soulmate took a long breath. Because hiding it is starting to feel like I'm testing them. Exactly. That was the problem with the rule they created after heartbreak. At first, withholding the wealth felt protective. They wanted people to meet the human being before meeting the bank account. Understandable. But eventually protection could become manipulation. If they allowed you to grow closer while hiding something enormous, would that really be fair? Their mother said. Then tell them before the secret becomes a test they never agreed to take. That sentence stayed with them. The next time you met, your soulmate almost told you. Almost. You were sitting somewhere completely ordinary. Not a private club. Not an exclusive restaurant. Somewhere your soulmate had deliberately chosen because they wanted the conversation to feel normal. You were telling them something about your life. They listened. Then you noticed they were distracted. What? Nothing. You've been staring at me strangely for 5 minutes. They laughed. I have something I need to tell you. You immediately became serious. That sounds ominous. It isn't bad. People always say that before saying something bad. Your soulmate smiled. Then fear appeared. What if the moment they told you, your behavior changed? What if suddenly you became impressed? What if the questions changed? What if the easy conversation disappeared and was replaced by curiosity about wealth? They panicked. Never mind. Your expression changed. No. What? You don't get to say, I need to tell you something and then, never mind. Your soulmate laughed. But you were right. They looked down. I'm nervous. That admission surprised you. About telling me? Yes. Why? Because I like who you are before knowing. They almost said it. Instead. Because it might change the way you see me. You became quieter. Then said. If it's something I deserve to know, you should probably let me decide how I see it. That sentence hit. Again, you were not making things easier. You were making them more honest. Your soulmate nodded. You're right. Then they said. I have significantly more money than I've let you believe. You stared. That was not what you expected. How significantly? Your soulmate almost smiled from discomfort. A lot. You laughed. That is not a number. No. How much? Your soulmate hesitated. Then finally. Billionaire significantly. Silence. Complete silence. They watched your face. This was the moment they had feared. Your eyes widened. You looked at them. Then. You're serious? Yes. You stared for another few seconds. Then you leaned back. Okay. Your soulmate blinked. Okay? Yes. That's it? You looked confused. What am I supposed to do? They almost laughed. I don't know. You thought. Then asked the question they absolutely did not expect. Why didn't you tell me? Not. How many billions? Not. What do you own? Not. Can I see your house? Why didn't you tell me? That question went straight to the emotional truth. Your soulmate answered. Because I wanted to know whether you liked me before you knew. Your expression changed. Not angry. But serious. So you were testing me? There it was. Exactly what their mother had warned about. Your soulmate immediately felt uncomfortable. I didn't think of it that way at first. But that's what it was. They paused. Yes. You nodded slowly. And how long were you planning to test me? That question hurt because they did not have an answer. I don't know. You looked away. For the first time since meeting, your soulmate felt you emotionally step backward. Not because of the money. Because of the secrecy. They said. I'm sorry. You looked at them. I understand why you did it. That gave them a little relief. Then you added. But I don't want to audition for someone's trust without knowing I'm auditioning. That sentence stunned them. You continued. I don't care whether someone has $10,000 or 10 billion. But if we're getting close, I need to know when I'm being observed instead of known. Your soulmate had no defense. You were right. They had been quietly collecting evidence. Does this person ask about money? Do they treat service workers well? Do they demand expensive things? Do they change after learning something impressive? Those observations might reveal character. But they could also prevent intimacy. Because while your soulmate was studying you, were they actually allowing you to study them? Not fully. They said. I think I've been afraid that if I stop testing people, I'll get used. You softened slightly. That makes sense. Then. But eventually you have to decide whether you're dating a person or conducting an investigation. Your soulmate laughed despite themselves. That was harsh. It was accurate. It was. The tension eased. But something had shifted. You now knew. Billionaire. 29. New York. The information was finally on the table. And your soulmate waited for your behavior to change. The next 10 minutes. Nothing. You continued drinking whatever you had ordered. Then you asked. So, are you happy? Your soulmate froze. What? You still never answered my question. What question? Do you actually like the life you built? They could not believe it. You had just discovered they were a billionaire and somehow returned to the emotional question. That was the moment. The moment your soulmate realized their secret had not changed the thing they feared losing. You were still looking at them. Not the money. Them. If you're enjoying this fictional billionaire soulmate story, subscribe and stay close, because the next secret your soulmate reveals is far more intimate than the number in their bank account. They are about to tell you about the private house outside New York, and why nobody they have ever dated has been allowed inside. Your soulmate answered your question. No. You became still. No. They shook their head. I like parts of it. Then. I'm proud of what I built. Pause. But I don't know if I like the way I live. There it was. The confession beneath the wealth. You asked. What would you change? They thought about the private property. The letter. The imagined quiet mornings. Everything. I'd make my life smaller. You looked surprised. Smaller? Not financially. They smiled. Quieter. That made sense. They continued. I bought somewhere outside the city. You asked. For weekends? Originally, I told everyone it was an investment. And? It wasn't. You waited. Your soulmate suddenly felt more exposed talking about this house than talking about billions. Because the money represented success. The house represented longing. I bought it because I wanted somewhere my life didn't feel like a performance. Your expression softened. Do you go there? Sometimes. With friends? No. Family? Occasionally my mother. You nodded. Then asked casually. Partners? Your soulmate looked directly at you. No. Something changed in the air. You noticed. Never? Never. Why? They almost avoided the answer. But enough hiding. Because I decided I wouldn't bring anyone there unless I thought they might become part of my real life. You became quiet. Your soulmate realized how that sounded. I'm not inviting you. You laughed. I didn't say you were. I know. I just. You panic after saying anything vulnerable. They stopped. You had noticed. Yes. That must be exhausting. It is. Both of you laughed. Then you asked. What's at the house that makes it so personal? Your soulmate's expression changed. The letter. They were not ready. Not yet. They said. Something I wrote. You immediately became curious. What? A letter. To who? Your soulmate looked at you. I don't know. You frowned. How do you write a letter to someone you don't know? I wrote it to the person I thought I might eventually trust enough to take there. Your eyes widened slightly. That is unexpectedly sentimental for a billionaire. They laughed. Please stop saying billionaire like it's my species. You smiled. For the first time, the word became funny rather than threatening. Then you asked. What does the letter say? Your soulmate shook their head. I'm not telling you. Why? Because if I ever give it to someone, they should read it themselves. You nodded. You did not push. That mattered. Again. You could have asked 10 questions. Instead. Fair. Your soulmate noticed the restraint. Old instinct almost labeled it as passing another test. Then they stopped themselves. No. You were not passing. You were simply being yourself. And your soulmate needed to learn the difference. The evening ended without dramatic promises. No private jet. No expensive gift. No invitation to the secret property. Just conversation. And somehow your soulmate felt more emotionally exposed than after any glamorous date they had experienced. Because you knew the number now. And still asked about the person. Days passed. Your behavior did change slightly. But not in the way they feared. You became more cautious. Not around money. Around trust. You asked questions. Who else knows you hide this from people? Does everyone you date go through the same test? How long does it normally take you to tell them? Some answers were uncomfortable. But your soulmate gave them. And slowly, something healthier began. You were not proving you were trustworthy. Your soulmate was learning how to trust. There is a difference. Then one evening, their mother called. So? Your soulmate smiled. They know. The money? Yes. And? They called me out for testing them. Their mother laughed. I like them. You haven't met them. I like them already. Your soulmate became quiet. Their mother heard it. What? I want to take them to the house. Silence. This time their mother did not joke. Are you sure? No. Good. Your soulmate frowned. Good? If you were completely sure, I'd think you were fantasizing. Then she asked. Why do you want them there? Your soulmate thought. Not to impress you. The house was beautiful, but there were far more impressive properties available. Not to make a grand gesture. Why? Finally. Because when I imagine them there, I don't imagine showing them anything. Their mother waited. I imagine making coffee. Silence. That answer said everything. Ordinary life. The thing your soulmate secretly wanted more than spectacle. Their mother said. Then maybe you're not thinking about a guest. Your soulmate's heart tightened. What am I thinking about? She answered. Home. That word followed them for days. Home. Then came the moment they finally asked you. Are you free this weekend? You replied. Maybe. Why? I want to show you somewhere. You became suspicious. Is this a billionaire thing? Your soulmate laughed. No. Pause. Well, technically the property is expensive. You sent. Unbelievable. They laughed again. Then became serious. It matters to me. You sensed the shift. The house? Yes. You remembered the conversation. The private place. Nobody taken there. The letter. You asked. Are you sure? Your soulmate looked at that question. Exactly the same question their mother had asked. They replied. I'm scared. You answered. That wasn't my question. Your soulmate smiled. Then. Yes. So you agreed. The weekend arrived. The city disappeared behind you. Your soulmate became quieter the closer you got. You noticed. You okay? Yes. Then they corrected themselves. Nervous. Better. Eventually you arrived. The property was beautiful. But not what you expected from someone worth billions. Not enormous for the sake of being enormous. Not filled with unnecessary displays. Warm. Private. Personal. There were books. Old photographs. Objects from before success. Things with emotional value rather than financial value. And suddenly you understood. This was not where the billionaire lived. This was where the 29-year-old underneath the billionaire existed. Your soulmate watched you look around. They were terrified. Not because you might dislike the house. Because you might understand them. Then your eyes landed on a desk. A sealed envelope. Your soulmate saw you notice it. Neither of you spoke. You looked at them. The letter? Their hearts started racing. Yes. Silence. You did not touch it. Is it mine? That question nearly stopped them. Because the letter had been written years before meeting you. There was no name. No face. No specific person. But standing there with you now, your soulmate suddenly knew the answer. They walked toward the desk. Picked up the envelope. Held it for several seconds. Then looked directly at you. I wrote this before I knew you existed. You waited. But I think. They stopped. Fear. You did not rescue them. You let them find the words. I think you might be the person I was hoping would eventually read it. Your chest tightened. They extended the envelope. But just before you took it, they pulled their hand back slightly. There's something I need to tell you first. You looked confused. What? Your soulmate's expression changed completely. Because the letter contained one secret they had not mentioned. Not about money. Not about the old relationship. Not about why they bought the house. Something about their family. Something that explained why, despite being only 29, they had spent years preparing for a future they were secretly terrified they might never have. And if you read that letter, you would learn it. Your soulmate looked at you and said, if you read this, you're going to know the one thing about me that almost nobody knows. You asked quietly. Do you want me to know? They stared at the envelope. Then at you. And after years of protecting the secret, they finally placed the letter in your hands. Yes. You opened it. Read the first line you already knew existed. If you are reading this, it means I trusted you before I told you everything about me. Then you continued. The next paragraph made your expression change. Your soulmate watched your eyes stop on one sentence. You looked up at them. Is this true? They could barely answer. Yes. And suddenly the billionaire, the city, the age difference, the private property, none of it mattered. Because the secret written in that letter revealed the real reason your soulmate had been so terrified of finding someone they could genuinely love. And now that you knew it, there was no way for them to hide behind money again.